Listen to me. Everybody loves that rush when you write the goal down, when you buy the journal, when you download the app, when you make the vision board. That's easy. That's the honeymoon phase. But there's a secret power most of you haven't tapped into yet. The power of finishing. See, starting doesn't change your life. You can start 100 times and still be the same person you were last year. But when you finish something, when you cross that line, when you do the thing you promised yourself you would do, that's when you shift from dreaming to becoming. Finishing rewires you. It tells your brain, we don't just talk, we execute. We don't just wish, we win. But here's the truth. Finishing ain't glamorous. Finishing isn't Instagrammable. It's not day one in the new gym outfit. It's day 47 when your body aches and you want to quit. It's 2 a.m. when the world is asleep and you're still grinding on that project. It's boring, it's gritty, it's ugly. And that's why most people never finish. Listen to me. Everybody talks about starting. Everybody loves that rush when you write the goal down. When you buy the journal, when you download the app, when you make the vision board. That's easy. That's the honeymoon phase. Starting feels good. Starting feels exciting. Starting feels like progress. But hear me. Starting doesn't mean a thing if you don't finish. Starting is a spark. It'll light you up for a moment, but it won't keep you warm. It won't sustain you. There's a secret power most people will never discover because they stop too soon. The power is in finishing. When you finish something, you don't just check off a box. You transform who you are. When you finish, you prove to yourself you can push past the pain, past the boredom, past the excuses. When you finish, you cross over from talking about it to being about it. And that's where the real shift happens. See, finishing rewires you. It tells your brain, we don't just dream, we deliver. We don't just write it down, we live it out. It changes your self-image. It builds something inside of you that no motivational video, no book, no pep talk can give you self-trust. Because when you finish what you start, you teach yourself that your word means something. You can look in the mirror and say, I said I would, and I did. And when you believe your own word, there's no limit to what you can take on next. But I need you to understand something. Finishing isn't glamorous. Finishing isn't pretty. Finishing is not what you see on social media with the filters and the highlight reels. Finishing is ugly. It's dirty. Finishing is the part when you don't want to do it anymore, when you don't feel like it, when you're tired of it, when it feels like nobody cares and nobody is watching. It's the early mornings when you'd rather stay in bed. It's the late nights when your eyes are burning and your body's begging you to stop. It's those moments where you start asking yourself, is it even worth it? That's the difference between those who make it and those who don't. Most people quit in that place. They mistake discomfort for a sign they're on the wrong path when it's actually the only path to greatness. If you can push through the grind, if you can push through the doubt, if you can stay locked in when the excitement wears off, that's where the power of finishing is forged. Every time you finish something, you add another layer to your foundation. You stack confidence. You stack belief. And that confidence compounds, that belief multiplies. Suddenly, you're not just finishing one thing, you're becoming a finisher. You don't second guess. You don't hesitate. You see something, you commit, and you get it done. That's why finishing is so powerful. It turns you into the kind of person who finishes everything they touch. Some of you are bouncing from one thing to the next like it's a buffet. You grab a plate, you take a bite, and before you swallow it, you're already reaching for something else. Stove. Finish what's on your plate, because when you leave everything half done, you train yourself to quit. You become comfortable with almost. But when you finish, when you close the book, when you cross the line, you create momentum. And momentum, that's energy you can't buy. That's energy that carries you into the next goal and the next one and the next one. The world doesn't pay you for potential. The world doesn't reward almost. You don't get medals for starting a marathon. You don't get trophies for showing up to practice. You only get them for crossing the finish line. You only get them for holding that thing in your hand and saying, I did this. I completed this. So I've got a question for you. What have you started that's still sitting there? What dream is collecting dust? What goal is halfway done because you got distracted, because it got hard, because the feeling faded? Listen to me. Everybody wants to talk about goals. Everybody wants to talk about chasing dreams. People get so fired up about writing it down, saying it out loud, telling the world what they're going to do. They numb the rush of starting, the adrenaline of the first step. You know that feeling. You get the new notebook, you post the big announcement, you feel like the future is yours. But here's the truth. Nobody wants to face starting is easy. Anybody can start. Finishing, that's a different beast. Finishing is rare. Finishing is where the power lies. Because starting doesn't change you. You can start 100 things and stay exactly the same person you've always been. Starting doesn't demand much of you. It just asks for excitement. But finishing demands everything. When you finish something, you don't just check off a task. You reshape who you are. You prove that you can grind through the messy middle, that you can push when nobody's watching, that you can keep your word to yourself when no one else is holding you accountable. And that's where the secret power is. When you finish, you build trust with yourself. When I say I'm going to do something, I deliver. That kind of self-trust is priceless. That's the foundation of confidence, the core of belief. Because if you don't trust yourself, who else will? If you don't believe your own word, how are you ever going to build a life you're proud of? But here's what most people don't understand. Finishing doesn't look like the motivational posters. It's not the polished version people share when it's all done. Finishing is raw. It's unfiltered. It's showing up on the days you don't want to, doing the work when the spark is gone, sticking to the grind when you're sick of it. It's waking up early when the bed feels like the only safe place in the world. It's staying up late when your eyes are burning. It's the struggle no one will ever applaud, the effort no one will ever post about, the sacrifice no one will ever see. That's why so many people quit. They think the hard part is starting, but the hard part is finishing. Because the further you go, the less applause you hear. At the start, people are clapping for you, cheering you on. But somewhere in the middle, the crowd gets quiet. That's when doubt creeps in. That's when you wonder if you're even on the right path. And that's where most people stop. Not because they couldn't finish, but because they didn't push past the silence. Every time you finish, you build a different kind of strength. Not just muscle, not just skill. You build character. You start stacking proof that you are who you say you are. And once you have that proof, you don't need permission anymore. You don't need validation anymore. You start walking into rooms differently because you know, deep down, you're not just a starter, you're a finisher. But some of you keep skipping that part. You get addicted to starting. You jump from goal to goal, project to project, idea to idea. You collect half-done plans like souvenirs. And you tell yourself you're making progress, but really you're stuck in the same loop. You've built a habit of almost finished, almost there. And almost doesn't change lives. Almost doesn't create legacy. Almost doesn't make you proud when you look in the mirror. Finishing is where everything shifts. When you finish one thing, it makes the next thing easier to finish. You build momentum. That momentum is energy. It's power. It's proof. The kind of proof that tells you the next goal isn't impossible. It's inevitable. Because you've crossed the line before and you'll do again in the world. The world doesn't reward almost. It doesn't pay you for starting. It doesn't celebrate. I was working on it. You don't get a medal for running 25 miles of a 26-mile marathon. You don't get a trophy for being close. You only get it when you finish. So ask yourself right now, what's sitting undone? What's collecting dust on your desk, in your journal, in your heart? What did you say you were to go, but walked away from when it got hard? Listen to me. Everybody loves the excitement of setting goals. You know that feeling when you write it down, when you tell somebody about it, when you see it so clearly in your mind. That moment feels powerful. It feels like everything's about to change. You get the rush, you get the hype, you feel unstoppable. But I have to tell you something that most people don't want to hear. Starting is the easy part. Anybody can start. Anybody can say they want to do something. Anybody can post about it, talk about it, dream about it. The real power isn't in the start. The real power is in the finish. When you start something, you're making a promise to yourself, a promise to the people who believe in you. But when you finish, that's when that promise becomes real. Finishing is where you take your words and turn them into reality. Finishing is where you separate yourself from everybody who gave up, because starting doesn't make you different. Everybody starts. But finishing, that's rare. That's what makes you stand out. Finishing does something inside of you that nothing else can. It rewires how you see yourself. It tells your brain, when we say we're going to do something, we do it. And that changes everything, because now you're not just chasing goals. You're building trust with yourself. And once you trust yourself, once you know deep down you will show up for you, there's nothing you can't take on. That's the secret power nobody talks about. Finishing creates belief. Finishing creates confidence. Finishing builds a version of you that doesn't fold when it gets uncomfortable. But here's what you have to understand. Finishing isn't pretty. It's not glamorous. It's not that fresh burst of energy on day one when you tell everybody what you're about to do. Finishing is lonely. Finishing is gritty. Finishing is staying on the grind long after the excitement has worn off. It's waking up on the days you don't want to. It's pushing through the moments you don't feel like it. It's working when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when it feels like no one cares. That's what finishing looks like. And that's exactly why so few people get there. Most people quit when it stops feeling good. They think something's wrong because it got hard. They think the struggle means they picked the wrong goal. But the struggle isn't a sign you're on the wrong path. It's proof you're on the right one. Because everything worth having demands a fight. Everything worth finishing will test you. It will stretch you. It will push you to a point on the side. Am I going to fold or am I going to finish? Every time you choose to finish, you gain something you can't buy and you can't fake. You gain identity. You start seeing yourself differently. You start carrying yourself differently. You stop introducing yourself as someone who tries and you start living as someone who delivers. That's the quiet power of finishing. It's not just about the thing you did. It's about the person you became by doing it. But some of you've been starting things and leaving them half done for so long, you don't even see it anymore. You used to quit it halfway. You're used to telling yourself, I'll come back to it, but you don't. You've built a habit of almost done, almost finished, almost there. But almost won't change your life. Almost won't inspire your kids. Almost won't build the legacy you keep talking about. When you finish, you shift the momentum. One finish leads to another. One complete goal becomes the fuel for the next one. And that momentum, that's everything. That's what carries you through the next hard season. That's what builds the belief that you can keep doing it again and again. Because once you cross that line, you know you can cross it again. And let me tell you something. The world doesn't celebrate almost. The world doesn't reward, I was working on it. You don't get a gold medal for leading a marathon for the first 10 miles. You don't get a trophy for being close. You only get it when you finish. So now you've got to ask yourself, what have you left unfinished? What did you say you do, but you walked away when it stopped feeling exciting? What dream did you let sit on the shelf because the grind got heavy? Listen to me. Everybody loves the idea of a new beginning. You get that energy, that fire, that rush the moment you tell yourself, I'm going to do this. You write it on a sticky note. You tell your friends, you post about it, and you feel like something inside you has already shifted. That first step feels powerful. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Starting is easy. Starting doesn't cost you much. Anybody can start. What changes your life is finishing. That's where the real transformation lies. When you finish something, you send a message to yourself that nothing else can send. You say to yourself, I see it through. I keep my word. I don't stop until it's done. That's more than a goal completed. That's a new identity formed. Because finishing isn't just about the project, the workout, the degree, the business. It's about the version of you that emerges on the other side. Every finish carves out a stronger you, a more disciplined you, a more unshakable you. But let me be real with you. Finishing isn't glamorous. There's nothing shiny about it. It's not that first day in your new running shoes or the first page of your business plan. Finishing is the 4:30 a.m. alarm when your body says stay in bed. Finishing is the nights when you'd rather do anything but the work. Finishing is pushing through when the applause has faded, when nobody is watching, when it feels like nobody cares. And that's exactly why most people never get there. Because they only want to do the work when it feels good. The truth is, finishing requires you to fight. Not against other people, but against yourself. Against your own doubts, against your own excuses, against that voice that says, this is too much. You have to silence that voice, because finishing isn't about talent and it isn't about luck. It's about endurance. It's about staying in the game long after the feeling that started it has worn off. Every time you finish something, you build something far more valuable than the goal itself. You build trust with yourself. And that trust is everything. Because if you don't trust you, if you don't believe your own word, how can you expect anyone else to? You're not just proving something to the world. You're proving something to you. And that's the kind of proof that changes how you walk, how you talk, how you carry yourself. But here's the problem for some of you. You've been living in almost. You've got half-read books, half-built dreams, half-written plans. You get excited, and then you stop. You move on to the next, and the next, and the next. You tell yourself you're building, but you're really just collecting beginnings. And beginnings don't build legacy. Beginnings don't earn respect. Beginning teach you who you really are. Finishing is what shifts everything. One finish leads to another. You finish one thing, and suddenly the next thing doesn't feel so far. You build momentum, and momentum is power. Momentum is proof. That's the energy that carries you through the hard seasons, because you can look back and say, I've crossed the line before, I can cross it again. And you need to hear this. The world doesn't reward ons. You don't get credit for nearly writing the book, for nearly starting a business, for nearly crossing the finish line. There are no medals foremost. There is no celebration for, I was working on it. There is only recognition for the ones who finished what they started. So you have to ask yourself, what's sitting unfinished in your life? What dream is still waiting on you because you walked away when it got hard? What goal did you say mattered, but you left halfway done when the excitement died out? Listen to me. Everybody loves the idea of a new beginning. You get that energy, that fire, that rush the moment you tell yourself, I'm going to do this. You write it on a sticky note. You tell your friends, you post about it, and you feel like something inside you has already shifted. That first step feels powerful. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Starting is easy. Starting doesn't cost you much. Anybody can start. What changes your life is finishing. That's where the real transformation lies. When you finish something, you send a message to yourself that nothing else can send. You say to yourself, I see it through. I keep my word. I don't stop until it's done. That's more than a goal completed. That's a new identity formed. Because finishing isn't just about the project, the workout, the degree, the business. It's about the version of you that emerges on the other side. Every finish carves out a stronger you, a more disciplined you, a more unshakable you. But let me be real with you. Finishing isn't glamorous. There's nothing shiny about it. It's not that first day in your new running shoes or the first page of your business plan. Finishing is the 4:30 a.m. alarm when your body says stay in bed. Finishing is the nights when you'd rather do anything but the work. Finishing is pushing through when the applause has faded, when nobody is watching, when it feels like nobody cares. And that's exactly why most people never get there, because they only want to do the work when it feels good. The truth is, finishing requires you to fight, not against other people, but against yourself, against your own doubts, against your own excuses, against that voice that says, this is too much. You have to silence that voice, because finishing isn't about talent and it isn't about luck. It's about endurance. It's about staying in the game long after the feeling that started it has worn off. Every time you finish something, you build something far more valuable than the goal itself. You build trust with yourself. And that trust is everything. Because if you don't trust you, if you don't believe your own word, how can you expect anyone else to? You're not just proving something to the world. You're proving something to you. And that's the kind of proof that changes how you walk, how you talk, how you carry yourself. But here's the problem for some of you. You've been living in almost. You've got half-read books, half-built dreams, half-written plans. You get excited, and then you stop. You move on to the next, and the next, and the next. You tell yourself you're building, but you're really just collecting beginnings. And beginnings don't build legacy. Beginnings don't earn respect. begin and teach you who you really are. Finishing is what shifts everything. One finish leads to another. You finish one thing, and suddenly the next thing doesn't feel so far. You build momentum, and momentum is power. Momentum is proof. That's the energy that carries you through the hard seasons, because you can look back and say, I've crossed the line before, I can cross it again. And you need to hear this. The world doesn't reward ons. You don't get credit for nearly writing the book, for nearly starting a business, for nearly crossing the finish line. There are no medals foremost. There is no celebration for I was working on it. There is only recognition for the ones who finished what they started. So you have to ask yourself, what's sitting unfinished in your life? What dream is still waiting on you because you walked away when it got hard? What goal did you say mattered, but you left halfway done when the excitement died out? Listen to me. Everybody wants the excitement of a fresh start. You know, grab the pen, you write the goal, you talk about how this time is going to be different. You feel that surge of energy, that buzz in your chest like you've already won just by declaring it. But here's the truth that separates the dreamers from the dirt. Starting doesn't change your life. Starting is easy. Anybody can start. What changes you is finishing. That's where the real power is. That's where the transformation hides. When you finish something, you send a message self that echoes louder any motivational quote, louder than any applause you could get. You tell yourself, I said I would and I did. You rewrite the way you see yourself, because finishing isn't just an identity shift. Every single finish adds another layer of proof that you are the kind of person who follows through, the kind of person who keeps promises to themselves. But finishing doesn't look like the highlight reels you see online. Finishing is not the smiling photo at the end. It's not the shiny announcement you post for everyone to see. Finishing is made in the dark, in the quiet hours, no one claps for you. Finishing when the excitement wears off and the work feels heavy. It's when your body is telling you to stop, when mind is trying to bargain with you, when that voice whispers, it's okay to quit. Finishing means staying the fight when that voice gets loud. Most people don't finish, be confused the heart with the wrong part. They think that because it's uncomfortable, it's not meant for them. They think that because it got heavy, they chose the wrong goal. But discomfort isn't the signal to quit. It's the proof that you're doing something worth finishing. The grind is part of it. The doubt is part of it. The nights you don't want to do it, the more to rather not show up. Those moments aren't signs to stop. They're the tests that decide you got it in you to finish. And when you do finish, something shifts inside you, not just the relief of being done. It's the pride of knowing you kept going when everything in you wanted to stop. You build a kind of confidence that can't be faked, can't be borrowed, can't be given to you by anyone else. You earn it. And once you earn it, you carry it into everything you touch. Because finishing one thing doesn't just close the chapter, it fuels the next one. But some of you have been living in a cycle of almost finished the project, almost launched the business, almost got healthy. You stack up half and wonder why you feel stuck. You've built a habit of stopping halfway. And every time you stop, you teach yourself that your words don't mean much. You start believe your own excuses. And that's dangerous, because if you can't rely on you, if you can't trust you, how can you expect anyone else to? That's why finishing is so powerful. It's not just about things you complete. It's about the story you're telling yourself every time you complete it. You're building a track record with yourself. You're saying, when I say I'm going to do it, I finish it, period. That belief comes unshakable. That belief becomes your engine. Momentum is born in finishing. When you finish one thing, you create the energy to finish the victories. You stack proof. And that momentum, that's what keeps you moving when the next goal feels impossible. Because you can look back and see that you've crossed the finish line before, and that means you can cross it again. And hear me when I say this. The words that celebrate almost. The world doesn't hand out trophies for. I was working on it. There are no rewards for being close. No one remembers who led the race for the first mile. They remember who crossed the line. So think about it. What's still sitting unfinished in your life? What goal did you get excited about and away from when the feeling faded? What dream is still waiting for you because you let the grind convince you to stop? Listen to me. Everybody loves you setting a goal. You know that surge. You write it down. You tell somebody about it. You feel like the future just opened up for you. It's exciting. It feels powerful. It feels like you already accomplished just something by saying it out loud. But here's the truth. Nobody wants to sit with starting. It's not the starting doesn't change you. Anybody can start. The power, the real, raw, unshakable power is in finishing. When you finish, you're not just checking a box. You're building something deeper. You're building proof. Proof that you keep your word. Proof that you don't just talk about it, you do it. Proof that when you say you're going to do something, you don't stop halfway. That proof matters more than you think. Because finishing doesn't just give you a result. It was how you see yourself. It builds a version of you that believes deep down that you are capable, you are relentless, you are trustworthy yourself. But finishing isn't what you see on a highlight reel. Finishing does happen when the cameras are on, when people are cheering, when it feels easy. Finishing is made in the quiet. It's the mornings when you're tired, when you don't want to get out of bed. It's the nights when no one's watching and you quit and nobody would even know, but you keep going anyway. That's what finishing really looks like. And that's why so many people never taste that power, because finishing doesn't feel good all the time. Most people quit because they mistake discomfort for defeat. They think the grind means they aren't built for it. They think the pain means just stop. But pain isn't the signal to quit. It's the proof that you're in the right place. It's the toll you pay for growth. Anything worth having is going to demand something from you. It's going to stretch you, push you, break down the weaker parts of you until the stronger version steps up. Every single time you finish, you gain that nobody can take from you. You gain confidence, but not the shallow kind that comes from compliments. The deep kind, the kind you build brick by brick. By keeping promises to yourself, that kind of confidence becomes part of you. You don't need to hype yourself up. You just know. You know you can finish because you've done it before. You know you can push through because you've already survived worse. But here's the truth for some of you. You've been living in, almost. You've been collecting beginnings like trophies, starting your stopping, stacking up unfinished dreams, unfinished promises. And every time you stop, you chip away at your own belief. You teach yourself you don't always mean what you say, that you can quit and it won't matter. And over time, that becomes your pattern. Finishing breaks that pattern. Finishing changes the story. When you finish, you teach yourself a new lesson. When I say, I will, I do. You start to trust self again. And when you trust yourself, you walk in every new challenge with a different kind of strength. You don't just hope you'll finish. You expect to. That's the secret power of finishing. It creates momentum. One finish leads to another. One comes the foundation for the next. You start stacking wins, and those build weight. They build belief. That momentum will carry you through the next season, through the next challenge, through the next storm, because you got the receipts. You can look back and say, I've done it before. I'll do it again. And let me tell you, it doesn't pay you for almost. Nobody hands out medals for nearly crossing the line. There's no prize for almost writing a book, almost starting a business, almost getting a degree. The only thing that counts is finishing. So you have to ask yourself, what's sitting unfinished in your life right now? What have you halfway done before it got heavy? What promise did you make to yourself that you walked away from when it stopped being exciting? Listen to me. Everybody talks about what they want. Everybody has a list of goals, a vision board, a dream they've been carrying around for years. You can feel the excitement and talk about it when they just light up. Their voice changes. They swear this is the thing that's going to shift everything. But there's a truth. Most people doing it 1 minute isn't enough. Stalking isn't enough. The only thing that transforms your life, the only thing that creates real power is finishing. When you finish, you create something no one can take away from you. You build evidence. Evidence that you are who you said you were going to be. Evidence that your word means something. Not to the world first, but to yourself. Because the most dangerous thing you can lose is trust in you. And every time you start something, and don't finish it. You chip away that trust. But every time restore it, you strengthen it, you make it unbreakable. Finishing changes you in a way starting never will. Starting is exciting. It's fun. It's full of energy, easy to talk about, but finishing requires a different version of you. Finishing demands the disciplined you, the relentless you, the you that doesn't care if it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. That's the you that gets built in the trenches. And don't get it twisted. Finishing is not glamorous. It's not the pretty picture you post online. It's not the moment people cheer for you. Finishing happens in the moments no one sees. It's the early mornings when you drag yourself out of bed because you promised yourself you would. It's the late nights when you're tired, frustrated, tempted to give up, but you don't. It's your school. It's the grind that's bornly, the grind that nobody claps for. That's where finishing is born. Most people quit because they think struggle means they're failing. They think the hard part means they cut out for it. But that's a lie. Struggle doesn't mean stop. It means you're growing. The weight you're carrying isn't proof you picked the wrong goal. It's proof that the goal is heavy enough to matter. Everything worth finishing is going to hurt. Everything worth finishing will demand something you didn't know you had. And here's the thing. Every time you finish, you collect something priceless, confidence. But not the shallow confidence from some soul in you. Good job. I'm talking about the kind of confidence that lies in your bones. The kind you earn. The confidence that says, I've been here before. I know how to keep finish. That's not hype. That's history. You can point to moments when you kept your word, when you didn't quit, when you crossed the line. But some of you have been living in a cycle of unfinished business. You start and stop. You get excited and fade out. You make promises and then quietly walk away from them. And you think it doesn't matter, but it does. Because every time you stop, you train yourself to believe, I don't follow through. You start to expect it from yourself. And that expectation is poison. It keeps you from even pushing the next time. Finishing breaks that poison. Finishing rewrites the script. When you finish, you start training yourself to believe opposite. That when you say something, you mean it. When you start something, you will see it through. That belief is powerful. That belief will carry you in every challenge, every storm you'll face, because you won't just hope you can do it. You'll know. Finishing builds momentum, and momentum is everything. You finish one thing, and some of the next thing feels possible. You stack finishes like bricks, and before you know it, you've built a foundation so strong you can stand on it no matter what comes. That momentum will push you forward even you don't feel like moving, because you've built proof that you can keep crossing finish lines. And hear me, this word is not reward almost. Nobody gets celebrated for almost writing a book, almost running a race, almost chasing a dream. You don't get remembered for the things you almost did. You only get remembered for what you finished. So you got to look in the mirror and ask yourself, what's still sitting undone? What goal did you say you would crush, but you stopped when it got inconvenient? What dream have you been circling for years, but never crossing the line on? Listen to win. Everybody wants to break through the success story, the moment where everything changes. They want the celebration. They want the applause. They want the recognition. But very few want what it takes to get there, because what it takes isn't just effort. It's completion. It's crossing the line. It's finishing. And that's the part most people won't talk about, because finishing easy and isn't glamorous. Starting is exciting. Starting makes you feel alive. You talk about the goal. You buy the gear. You write it down. You tell your friends. And for a moment, you'll have already accomplished something. But the high of the starting fades. The feeling goes away. And when it does, that's when finishing becomes the real test. Because finishing demands that you keep moving when feeling is gone, when the excitement has died, when the weight of work is sitting on your back and whispering for you to quit. That's why finishing is so powerful. It forces you to become a different version of yourself. Finishing isn't just an action, it's a transformation. You can't finish by staying who you were when you started grow. You have to become tougher, more disciplined, more focused. Finishing strips away the excuses, the laziness, the comfort. It drags out that refuses to quit And that part of you becomes stronger till you cross a finish line. But finishing doesn't look like the movies. There's no dramatic music, no spotlight, no slow motion scenes of you charging across the line. Finishing is made up of quiet, uncelebrated moments. It's the 5 a.m. alarm you don't snooze. It's the extra hour you put in when no one is watching. It's the decision to keep going when there's no audience to clap, no one to tell you, good job, and no instant reward. That's where finishing lives. In the dark, in the days that feel endless. And here's what stops most people. They think the struggle is a sign to quit. They think if it's heavy, it's wrong. They think if they're tired, it's not me to be. But the truth is, that's the process. The hard part is supposed to feel hard. That's why finishing is rare. Because most people think they should stop, when in reality, the pain is proof that they're right when they're supposed to be. Every time you finish, you gain something that can't be measured. Yes, you get the goal, the achievement, the reward. But the real gain is internal. You build a kind of confidence that can give you and nobody can take from you. The kind that says, I don't quit, follow through. I finish what I start. That belief rewires your entire mindset. It shifts the way you approach every new goal, because now you don't just hope you can finish. You know you can finish. But for some of you, you've been living in this loop of starting and stopping. You get excited, you start, you push for a while, you stop. And you tell yourself it's not a big deal, you'll get back to it later, but deep down, it chips away at you. Every unfinished thing you leave behind teaches you something dangerous, that it's okay to not follow through. That it's okay to quit on yourself. And that lesson, your default setting, finishing breaks that. Finishing resets that narrative. When you finish, you tell yourself a new story. I say it. I start it. I finish it. And every finish that story louder, clearer, more powerful. That's why finishing one thing leads to finishing another. You start stacking completions like bricks. And before you know it, you built an unshakable foundation. That foundation is called momentum. And momentum changes everything. Because once you start finishing, you don't just complete tasks. You create a pattern. You create proof. And that proof pulls you forward. It gives you strength on the days when you have none, because you can look back and see the line you already crossed. But here, when I say this, the world doesn't celebrate almost. Nobody remembers who almost finished the book, almost launched the company, almost changed their life. There is no trophy for almost. The world only remembers finishers. So you got to look at your own life and ask yourself, what's been sitting half done? What did you swear you would finish? But you let sit untouched when the grind got uncomfortable. What dream have you been carrying for years, but never closed the gap on? Listen to me. Everybody says they want it. Success, for them, the life dream about. They talk or write it down. They post about it. They hype it up. But wanting it and finish starting with two completely different things. Most people never see life they talk about because they never finish. They start, they stop, they get excited, they get distracted, they feel motivated, that feeling fade. And every time they stop short, they teach themselves that quitting is an option. Finishing is not about hype. Finishing is not about being inspired for a moment and hoping it lasts. Finishing is a decision. Finishing is waking up every day and saying, I'm not stopping until it's done. No matter how you feel, no matter how many times you want to quit, that's the secret power. Finishing doesn't get you results. Finishing shapes you. It builds a version of you that not break when it gets heavy, and a version that doesn't fold when things get ugly, a version of you that can look yourself in the mirror and trust the person staring back. Because let's be real. Anybody can start. Anybody can set a goal, buy the Planet Friends, make a post about it. That's easy. Starting feels good. Telling feels powerful. Starting feels like movement. But starting isn't where the growth happens. Starting doesn't change you. It's finishing that does the work. Finishing takes you through the fire, through the days you want to quit, through the moments when you wonder if it's worth it. Finishing makes you wrestle with your excuses, your fear, your comfort, and beat them all. And here's what you have to understand. Finishing is not glamorous. Nobody's filming the mornings when you drag yourself out of bed half asleep. Nobody's clapping for you when you're in the grind and doing the boring, repamperous work that moves you 1 inch closer. There's no standing ovation for the late nights when you keep going, even though nobody would blame you if you stop. Finishing happens in those hidden moments in the struggle that nobody sees but you. Most people will never finish because they think discomfort means they're failing. They think the hard part, they should stop. But the hard part is the point. The resistance you feel isn't there to push you away. It's there to make sure you earn what's on the other side. Anything worth finishing will test you. It will demand energy you don't think you have, strength you don't think you've built yet. And when you decide to keep going through that, you don't just finish. You become unrecognizable from you or when you started. Every finish adds something to you. It's more than just a reward at the end. It's not just the certificate, the title, the paycheck, the applause. Every time you finish, you deposit trust into yourself. You build confidence that's not fake, not borrowed, not fragile. The kind of confidence that comes from keeping promises to yourself. That confidence starts to shape your identity. You stop saying, and hope I can do this. I know I will do this. But some of you have been living in unfinished. You've been living surrounded by half-done projects, half-chased dreams, half-kept promises. And whether you realize it or not, it's been eating away at you. Because every time you don't finish, you weaken your own belief. You whisper to yourself, I quit when it's hard, even if you don't say it out loud. And the longer you live like that, the more normal quitting feels. Finishing destroys that cycle. Finishing rewrites the script. When you finish, you teach yourself that the kind of person who follows through, that your word means something, that when you say you're going to do it, you do it. Even when it's not fun, even when it's not easy. And every time you do that, you make it harder and harder for the old you to come back. And once you start finishing, momentum kicks in. Finishing one thing, you believe you finish another. You start stacking completions, stacking wins, stacking proof that you are capable of carrying heavy things across the line. And that proof carries you into the next challenge. You stop starting over and over and you start building. But the world doesn't clap for almost. Nobody celebrates the book you almost wrote. The business you almost started, the race you almost ran, doesn't change your life. Almost doesn't pay the bills. Almost doesn't make you proud when you look in the mirror. The world only remembers the ones who finish. So now you have to face yourself. You have to look at the things you left unfinished, the goals you abandoned when it stopped being fun, the promises you made broke when the grind got too real. You have to ask yourself why you keep starting over instead of finishing what you started.